where they were trying to collect from, when they said they tried to collect it from me and they didn't turn up.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to do it. I just can't seem to. You can't get past the billing section. It just all falls over. The web page comes up with errors, and it just nothing works. So
Just phone them.
Yeah, I don't fancy doing that. Right. Okay. So everything seems to be recording. No, it's not. I should start the recorder off. The audio stream is working. So.
Always a good sign.
Yes. Let's just get the recorder going, and then we're ready to go. Yes.
For my graphics drive to crash.
The audio streaming. A Microsoft solution would be great. Right, well, it's working again now, it says. So, let's join the chat room. Is it working? It says it's working, but that seems to be two separate issues. Right, so, yes, we'll be talking about driver updates for the Surface. We have a new build to talk about.
We do, with so many changes. How can we list them all?
Yeah, it's going to take a long while to list all the build changes. And what else have we got? We've got power cables. We talked about a bit then, but we've got more details on last week.
Yep.
We'll talk about your trial 950 XL and
yes.
On that. And while we haven't got any builds today, we do have an updated way on how to get the firmware for a build anyway, if you're on the phone. So let's go back. Let's talk about the new build then. That's probably the biggest Microsoft event from last week. So we've got a new build 11102.
Yes, and that was, I think that was after we recorded, wasn't it?
Yes, it was last Wednesday or Thursday.
Yes.
Evening, I think.
Yeah, when we were speculating whether or not they'd be able to meet their new cadence, and along came a new build. And I think I've said we talk about this lots and lots about Gabe. He's such a good guy, and he really does take some flack. And I was reading through some of the tweets, and it's like people just complaining that there aren't any visual changes. Like they just can't win. They get builds out quicker, and that was what I think we've had. That was within the space of 7 to 10 days, wasn't it? And people still find things to complain about. I just think sometimes people are just, I don't know, they're just not necessarily in the program for the right reasons, I think.
Yeah. And to be fair, though, we're saying there's no changes. There are no visual well, there's one visual change, I believe, but there's a lot of changes under the skin.
Yeah, I think Gabe said 1200, didn't he, or something?
Yeah, and I mean, I do my classic test to see how hot my computer runs, which is I don't know when I started doing that one, but it does seem to become a quite good one. But I've also noticed that memory management has obviously changed under the skin in this release, because before it used to hover around about 40%. Now it always seems to be around about 70%. And I wonder if they've taken the Mac approach, where it basically uses all the memory it can and just leaves a little bit of overhead available.
Yeah, because didn't they change that? I mean, that actually changed within the Threshold 2 build, didn't it? Originally, anyway. That's the first time they changed it.
Yeah, I think they've tweaked it this time, because it's definitely different to what it was previously.
I wonder if I wonder if maybe because they talked about some memory compression, didn't they? I wonder if maybe that's not working or has been taken out of this build.
Yeah, maybe. Or maybe the way the memory compression works is it puts it all into one chunk, which is always there. I don't know, but it never seems to go any higher than about 72, 73. But it sits around about 70, 71 most of the time.
Is there any particular guilty party in Task Manager?
Let's have a look.
I'm going to check mine now.
SQLserver.exe.
Edge. Edge.
Because
That's using the most memory.
that's got
And then
system
system and compressed memory.
Yes, and that was what was introduced with Threshold 2,
Mhm.
wasn't it?
So it's definitely is using some up. The other thing I've noticed is it's not peaking the CPU anywhere near as much. 25, 26, 27 on mine, where it used to get about 35, 40 on an average day. And the temperature's staying below 50 degrees, which is pretty good. So, yeah, I mean, it's obviously doing a lot of stuff under the skin, which is why you're getting a few bugs and glitches in the place.
And I think it's really important to highlight the fact that, you know, while we're getting desktop builds, this one core is applicable to, you know, mobile. It's applicable to the Xbox One. So, you know, they are potentially, you know, far-reaching in terms of the importance of those changes. So
Even the Raspberry Pi.
yes, of course, yes, yeah.
My Raspberry Pi 2 got an update. The .63 build.
Yeah.
Now, I'm just looking at my own core, and that's running memory at 53%. Just sitting there quite nicely. So, yeah, I didn't see a lot in performance, but like you said, under the hood they've done a lot of changes, and I think they're changing the way that things check in as well, aren't they? The developers check in internally, so that can help the speed of the builds. But that's meant that we haven't seen a lot of new features. But yes, we did have one new feature, which was the back button, wasn't it? With the history in Edge.
Yeah, so you can drop down the back button to see your previous sites you've been to, and also you can drop down the forward button if you come to go back.
Yeah,
which confused. So when I was trying to explain that to someone on the phone the other day, that really confused them. But it's very straightforward.
Yeah, it works quite well. I mean, I'd forgotten that wasn't there really. I think that's there in the Internet Explorer, isn't it? Or maybe it was Chrome. I've seen that before, but
yeah, Internet Explorer.
Yeah. So I hadn't really missed it too much, but actually, it is quite good to have it back.
Yeah, it's useful.
Yeah, and there's a few issues with this, wasn't there, around graphics. PC games going back to full screen that would crash, and I think some of the things like narrator and magnifier don't have got issues as well, but nothing too major. I did notice that one of the visual thing is the connect button's not there in Action Center anymore.
Yes, which is annoying.
Yeah, but they do. At least they have called it out as a bug rather than a known feature. Like, as you know, that's gone and it won't be coming back.
Yeah.
And also, I think with this increased cadence of fast builds, I think anybody putting it on production machines has got to be, you know, you're going to have to expect some issues. If you know, it's not saying don't do it, but I'm saying if you do it, then, you know, you really can't complain if you get bitten by issues.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I wouldn't put that on my Surface Pro 3 here that I'm using for the video editing, the audio editing, everything else. But I'm happy to put me on core, because if I have to roll back or mess about with it, then it's not really a showstopper. It still does have. I don't know if you've seen this on your devices, but I still have the issue where it will pick when it does the update. It picks a newer driver, even if it doesn't work. So I don't know if you remember me telling you about on the Encore 8, there's two driver issues. One is a network driver and the other is a sound driver. And the latest version of the network driver doesn't work. The Wi-Fi doesn't work, and the latest sound driver doesn't work. So after the install's finished, you've got to go into Update Driver through Device Manager, pick the earlier version, and it fixes it. But then each time you do a new build, it installs the newer version again. So I'm not sure if there's a way of completely removing the old driver. There probably is, actually. I'm just selecting the new one rather than removing the old one, or removing the newer one. But I'm not sure if it'll come down anyway.
I would expect probably that driver's probably in the build.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I noticed my test machine at work, the Radeon graphics driver, if you use the newer version of that, I think the July version, it won't go above like 640 by 480 or something. So you've got if you put the older driver on the one from January, then it's fine. So yeah, it's a bit annoying that I've got to do that each time. So that's another reason why you wouldn't do it on a production machine. But yeah, so far I found it's quite good. This Encore 8 does seem to suffer from having not turning on. So you press the Windows key and you can feel the vibration that it's doing something, but it doesn't actually turn on. It just gives you a black screen. So I think there's a display issue probably, and you've got to actually hold the power button to switch it off and back on again, and then it's fine. But it's not for something like that. It's not really an issue. But yeah, you wouldn't put it on your main development machine, especially if they're going to go for faster builds.
Yes, yeah, definitely. It's I think it'd be interesting to see when when we get the first slow ring build. That will kind of show when they're starting to kind of stabilize things.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we've not had a slow ring for a while, have we?
No, and I think at this early stage, I think that's understandable. But I mean, it's certainly nice to see that so far they seem to have managed to meet this new cadence. And as Gabe says, it's still a matter of meeting us. It still has to meet a certain level of standard and stable quality before they'll release it. But there will be, more builds with, more issues. So yeah, it'll be interesting to get to see it as we kind of move towards the Redstone 1 release.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, apparently, there's a couple of rumors that the internal test builds that they're on now have jumped release numbers quite high into the. I think we're on 1.1.1.02, and I think this is 1.1.4 something, isn't it? No, that the leaked builds are.
Yeah, and I think Gabe did kind of respond to that, basically saying that it's just kind of stabilizing and synchronizing the build numbers.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to happen. There'll be a lot of branches going on at the moment. There'll be a lot of people working on different things. So I can imagine they jump builds quite rapidly doing that.
And not to mention, of course, they'll be also looking to stabilize server 2016, is it?
Yeah.
The official name. So they'll be looking to stabilize that. And I guess if that does get to a release point, then they'll want to jump build numbers to give that some room for, updates and fixes.
Yeah, true. Yeah. And I think perhaps, as we said at the beginning, the way that they're doing the builds now has meant that jump forward.
Yes.
I did notice because Edge reports its build as the build number. So if you go through your browser logs on, I noticed you can use Google Analytics on the website, and I noticed on TDL that I'm seeing some higher build numbers, but not the big jump one. So that obviously that's not out. It must be there must be a few minor increments out. So maybe we'll get one of those minor increment ones this week. Or
there's some talk of actually us getting two
builds this week.
Yeah, in a one to basically get us ready for the next one.
Right.
So I mean, I'm hoping we're going to get a mobile build as well, because there seems to be some real issues with the last mobile build in terms of eating data allowances. I've noticed I'm on an unlimited plan, but I've noticed my data consumption's up dramatically on this build.
Yes, I noticed that when I checked it today, because some people on Twitter are talking about it. So I had a look, and I think mine in the last 30 days used 1.8 gig, the system.
Yeah, so it's to do with the backup option, not obeying some of the settings properly. So, and Gabe was saying that there's a fix fairly shortly, but I don't know if that means we're going to get a new mobile build. It'd be nice to tie it up start getting. I mean, one of the problems is now, because we've shot ahead on the desktop builds, and they need a release build for the mobile stuff fairly shortly, even though they're delaying it again to the actual official launch of the Mobile 10. It's difficult to see how they actually can line them up. Yeah,
that's the issue. There's an issue, isn't it, for them, because they've got they've got going ahead with the builds, but they've got to settle on a build that they're going to use for the upgrade, and it's not like with Windows 10 where they've already pushed the release out to users, and then people on the insider preview can use these newer builds. They haven't settled on I don't think they've settled on a release build, have they, for the updates? And this is taking a long time, isn't it, to get Windows 10 down to existing Windows phones.
Yes, yeah, but it's got to be right. I mean, there's completely two different schools of thoughts on this. Would you rather them push out an update which didn't work, just to get it out quickly, or would you rather them take the time and get it right? You could argue they need some more resource on it, but then again, that's a cost-benefit analysis they're going to be doing internally, and with the amount of profit that Windows Phone brings for them, maybe they won't be thinking to do that quite so rapidly for people who are on existing phones. Obviously, they want to get new phones up to that. I mean, I can see 950 updates coming up rapidly, and there's talks of new firmware coming up very shortly. So,
I think I think that is the one slightly worrying aspect there, isn't it? That the 950, 950 XL have been out for a number of months now, and people I've seen reading reviews on Amazon, and people are kind of saying how it's great hardware, but unfortunately the operating system's kind of letting it down. And you would think with flagship phones, you kind of really need a released version of the operating system now. I know it is released, but it still seems to have quite a few bugs that they're still trying to iron out.
Yeah, I actually think they did release the 950 way too early. I think that they probably should have held on to releasing that for a while. I know they wanted to build some buzz, but it does seem a bit.
I mean, to be honest, my 950 is working really well, and I've not really had any issues since I got the firmware on. And the firmware and the insider build combination seems to have worked really well, and the battery life's back.
I think if you're on the insider build, you're not too bad. But for Joe Public out there who's not on the insider build, it's a bit of a nightmare still at the moment.
But I mean, there are issues like my son had with his 550 where Groove wouldn't work at all and wouldn't update, and there just doesn't seem to be any way to fix it. And eventually, we did a reset and a restore a backup, but that's not really what you should be doing. So I know what you mean. That those issues like that, you don't want to push out to Windows 10, because I think, especially when you look at say in the UK, the market of Windows 10 on phones or Windows Phone 8.1, it's not all enthusiasts. I think many with the US-centric view think it's just Windows Phone fans running Windows Phone. But especially here in the UK, there's a lot of Windows Phones out there with just people who just bought them because of Lumias, Nokias, and they're a cheap smartphone.
Yeah.
And we talked about it before. I know my dad's got one, and I wouldn't like to have Windows 10 pushed out to his phone while it's got bugs in it, because he just wants to use it and doesn't care. He's not a insider and he's not enthusiast or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say that the loaded 950 XL, I put it on the insider program to get the 0.63 update, and for that has been absolutely rock solid. It's been an absolute joy to use. So I think they're certainly getting close. Like I say, I've not really experienced any direct issues. I made a point of making sure it was fully up to date before I started using it, so I didn't experience any of the earlier builds, and particularly not the one that kind of at the moment is the official released build, which I think is at 0.29, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the phone's been performing, great. I've been using it for listening to podcasts, and now that they're here, Drive app is now available again. I've been using it for my commute. So yeah, it's been a really nice experience.
Yeah, I think that's one thing we should highlight, the fact those here apps are back, because that's been a big thing. The navigation the lack of decent navigation working. I mean, I actually like the Maps app, but on Windows 10, but a lot of people don't. And the fact we didn't have here there, I mean, no, that was not Microsoft's fault. But again, it's one of these things where you think maybe if they'd waited a few weeks, they'd had a lot more stuff there, and it'd been a better experience when you first launch it. Which you don't want all those negative reviews when you first get a phone out there, because it's basically getting that tagged it's not a decent phone, and it is. It's a very decent phone.
And I think overall, when you're struggling to sell them anyway, then you don't want that negative experience.
No.
I mean, interesting. Holly in chat room saying that his 950 has been pretty good, but he has seen a few loading screens going through the messaging app. I have actually seen that myself a couple of times, where the messaging app opens and then closes again. Then you go back into it and it's fine. But that's probably about the only issue I've really come across. Like I said, it's the combination of the firmware and battery. I've seen Scott's Fool on Twitter. We like to wind him up occasionally, but about his how he breaks things. But he was complaining about issues with his 950, and I was saying you really need to put firmware on, but he doesn't want to do the reset because the backup doesn't actually back up everything.
Yeah.
And I can understand his frustration with that, but it made such a difference to my device, the battery life and everything else. So I think it is worth doing it, but you shouldn't have to do that. And actually, we've got a story on that shortly. So you don't have to do that anymore either.
Yeah, I mean, that's the one thing with the 950 XL loaner device. I've got that because that updated to 0.29 with the firmware before I joined the Insiders program, so it is fully up to date. And I think actually there was an update to the Skype and messaging app this week, wasn't there?
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's improved things, but yeah, I think Holiday Boy in the chat room mentioned about the Here Drive stuff. What you need to do is if you pick one of the apps and then search by, if you do kind of more info, and then tap the link to the developer, which is, I think it's Here, isn't it? Here Corporation. You'll actually see that there's 2 copies of each of the apps, and one of them will say not for your device, but the other one will say that it is available and you can download it. So you have to make sure you pick the right version of the app.
It's a pain you've upgraded and you've still got the old apps on there because they're difficult to get rid of. But yeah, if you can find them, they work well.
Yes, yeah, and it's I mean I've been using the commute feature again, so yeah, it works really well. And the 950 XL is such a beautifully big screen, although the size of the device means that my Nokia wireless charging cradle doesn't actually work because the cords don't line up.
Oh, and what's the advantage of using the Here app then, as opposed to just using the normal built-in maps?
The Here Drive has the My Commute feature built in, where it learns it kind of offers you a basic route to work, but it learns when you take different routes. And so, for example, I've got 3 ways I can go to work, and when I pass a particular junction where I've gone an alternative way, it will actually flash up both drive times, so I can choose whether or not to stay on my current course or switch to the alternative. But the thing I really like is that with the My Commute feature, it doesn't call out turns. So the Copilot app also has a commute feature built into it, but it calls out each turn. And I know the way to work. I don't need it to tell me to take the second junction on the roundabout or turn left in 300 yards. I don't need that. And when you try and listen to podcasts and stuff, it's really irritating that it keeps interjecting. So that's what I like about the Here Drive version of the commute.
Yeah. I'm just actually installing it now, and a Holiday Boy's just got it installed as well.
Yeah.
So that tip does work. They just need to remove the old version, then, don't they, from the store?
Yeah, I think there's actually there are actually 2 versions. I think.
Yeah, the struggle there is they can't remove the old version because the new version doesn't work on some older phones.
Right.
So they've got to keep both there for the moment, which is very confusing. And actually, it's a confusing thing in the way the store works currently, and something they need to look at. It'd be nice if there's some way of actually showing you what was a universal app in the store, much like Apple does with the iOS store.
And you need to does it use the maps already in the Windows?
Yeah. Because they are effectively Here maps anyway. So, and to be fair, I ought to give some kudos to the guys who are working on the maps program, the Windows Maps program, because they're constantly putting new features in and actually trying to keep up to date with the way to get a lot of that functionality back that was with the Here maps, plus some extra bits as well. So I think it's going to be interesting because we're going to have quite a lot of really good navigation apps for Windows 10.
Yeah, I'll have to. I'm going to put the Here ones back. I did used to use it all the time, but I just used the normal Maps app. Although I must admit, I use Gmaps Plus for extra traffic information, which I've mentioned before.
Yeah. I mean, for longer journeys, I do revert back to the Copilot because it's got the interactive traffic and will reroute you, based on busy roads or roadblocks or traffic jams kind of thing. So, but for one thing I like about the Here Drive My Commute, as I say, is the fact that it doesn't tell you how to get to work. It learns your preferred routes and offers you the drive times based on it. So it's good.
Yeah, I mean, as I've mentioned before, I've been using Sigit quite a lot recently as well because I like the heads-up display on that. I like the apparently it actually has a proper heads-up display, but also the fact that when you're in map mode, it gives you a lot of information about what's coming up on your route, like petrol stations and things. You get sort of like a mileage countdown to the nearest petrol station and things like that, which is quite good. I know you can search for those as POIs on other apps, but just to have it there visible all the time is quite useful.
One of the things I like on the Copilot app, which is a nice touch, is when you actually get to your destination, it pops up a prompt on the phone. You can just tap icons to then find parking or or places to stay, things like that. So it works quite well.
I like the navigation apps. I think I've had no issues with them. It's just the traffic could have extra details in there, but that the Google Maps have that Here doesn't have. But I'll give that a try on mine.
So I have a question for you guys. Obviously, I've been trying out the Lumia 950 XL, and it's really nice phone. I mean, the screen is gorgeous. The responsiveness of it is absolutely great. But while I thought I could get used to the size, I think it is. I'm really nervous trying to use it one-handed. It's going to slip out my hand, or I'm going to drop it. And I think for me, it's just slightly too big. But my worry is that the 950, I think Gary, you've spoken about this. The 950 has like the slower, I think it's the hex core processor, doesn't have the liquid cooling. So my question for you guys is, would you compromise on the size of the device for the better performance, or would you compromise on the performance for a device that's probably more comfortable to use in terms of its size?
Well, I'll let Gary answer that first.
I was going to say we know Ian's opinion. I mean, the XL is far too small for a phone. That's actually a really difficult one, because it's something I've actually held off buying a 950 for, because I can't make my mind up on that. I mean, I actually like a slightly smaller form factor than the 50 XL, although I must admit my eyesight is going as it is. I may need the bigger screen, but the 735 I've got currently is about the perfect size for me, and that's about the 950 size. But having played with both of them, and that fluidity I found on the XL, which wasn't quite there on the 950, would actually always, especially with Continuum, I think I really want that extra grunt with Continuum. So what I really want is a Surface phone, 5 inches, the full spec.
Yeah,
that'll do me fine.
How about
a Lumia X? Maybe I have one of those.
Because I think from my perspective, the Continuum is a great feature. It's certainly something that I will give a try to, but it's something that I would imagine I wouldn't use very often. So I wouldn't necessarily want to go for the XL just for optimization of a feature I'm not likely to use very often. And I think the 950 is probably going to be the device I get for myself, but I'm just worried I'll get the 950 and having used the XL, then kind of just regret. But I just don't think I
think there's a very good point there, because I think if I hadn't seen the XL, I'd have been absolutely happy with the 950.
Holiday Boy's saying that his other half's got a 950 and he's got the XL, and there is a performance hit. He says general day-to-day use with the 950. But for me, I can't see any reason why you would not have the XL. Because I can use it with one hand. It's light. It's thin. It's great for reading, browsing with, email, everything else. It's the right device for me. It doesn't feel like a large phone. I know that when I had the Galaxy Note, that felt like a large phone. It's smaller than this, but we've moved on quite a bit since then as well. And people don't say, "My God, what's that?" anymore. But which they did on the 1520 actually, which is strange, isn't it? That no one comments on this one, but they did on the 1520. But yeah, for me, it's just the right size, and I wouldn't compromise.
I guess because it is a smaller bezel, isn't it, than on the 15?
Yeah.
So
it's a smaller screen as well. Slightly.
Yes. So it's all round. It's a smaller phone anyway. It is into that area where I would class it as a phone rather than a phablet, but only just.
Yeah.
I just find, so with the 950 XL, obviously you can hold down the Windows button and the screen shrinks down, but maybe I've probably got quite small hands, and that when I'm holding it with one hand and I try and reach down to get to the Windows key or the back button, I find it really uncomfortable kind of using it right-handed, that I feel like I'm holding the phone in a way that it's likely to drop. Now, when I'm not doing things like that, the size doesn't, if I'm using it two-handed, or if I'm just using it one-handed once, to browse apps and tap icons from the start menu, I don't find it to be too big. And as you say, and definitely for reading and browsing the web and catching up on Twitter and stuff, the screen size is just perfect. But I just don't think I can quite get used to it. I've adapted to it, but I still, especially coming from like what was the 900, the 920, and then the 930, it just feels that bit too big, bit too cumbersome for me.
Yeah, I have to say, as much as I keep when I look to like the bigger phone, I haven't actually used a 950. So.
Yeah, the one thing I've asked Lumia Voices to see if I can get hold of a 950 once the XL goes back.
Yeah.
and that would be that'd be nice to be able to use both without investing in them. And then I think it would be interesting that if the 950 was that, if it felt that much slower, then I think I would compromise on the size. But having said that, while the 950 might feel slower, I think over time you'd probably forget, if you know what I mean, unless you've experienced the XL, or if that memory fades, then I think you just accept the 950 for what it is.
Yeah, but I would have to comment that the 950 was way faster than my 735. So it is horses for courses to some extent. It's just, I think, for my mind, I could allow for the 950 XL is just within the range of size I would accept, and I for the so little extra money, the performance boost, which for my mind was significant. But see what you think when you get hold of one.
Yes, yeah. If I can't get one from Nokia, I might not Nokia, sorry, from Microsoft. Then I think I'll have to be going down to an EE store and actually have a go with one.
Yeah. I for me, it's the 950 is a really great size, and the XL is the great size, and it works really well. But having said that, I've seen my son's 550, which is a much smaller phone, but it's a very nice form factor. Actually, it does feel quite nice to use.
Yeah, that 550 I set up the other week, I was really impressed with. That was a very smooth transition actually over from an old HTC 8 something of S, I think. Did the backup and reinstalled everything, and it all came across, and nothing was missing this time, which is rather amazing. So it just worked, and the person I did it for was very impressed.
Yeah.
And I was just in time to get that firmware update as well. I don't know if you saw there was a firmware update for the 550 available now on the
yes, I saw that. Yeah,
if you use the recovery tool, and that seemed to make a few minor differences to the performance. So
yeah, but they've not released that before. For insiders or non-insider phones yet either of them. It's just through the recovery tool.
Yeah, just through the recovery tool.
Yeah.
So I guess it's available for anybody if you had to use the recovery tool.
Yeah, exactly. Which I don't think what someone wants to do, because we've already wiped it once.
I mean, I have to say that transition was so smooth. I wouldn't be too discouraged from actually doing a wipe and recovery on that one.
I mean,
backup worked off.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was trying to say to Scott, really. I know it's a bit of a pain, but there's only I think it was the Google account and my Exchange account. You got to put the passwords back in. Well, there's not a huge amount of things you've got to.
I think it's mostly games. I know that's really frustrating for me. Although I was really pleased actually when I launched Hill Climb Racing on the 950 XL, and it actually had all my status and progress. So obviously the developers updated that now, so it does synchronize and back up, which is really good. Yeah. Especially when you've done microtransactions. I think that's the worst. Losing game progress, you can play the game again, but if you've invested in microtransactions, then that is frustrating to lose that.
Now, I mentioned about the firmware version. So previously there was an issue where if you were like me, you had say you're on the .29 version, and then you went on the Insider and got the 63 version, and then a new firmware version came out. You didn't get that firmware because when you do a check for an update, that firmware doesn't exist with that combination of the .63 update, so you wouldn't get it. So the way in the end that I got it was to do a reset using the recovery tool, which puts the firmware on there, and then you can after restoring, you can enroll it back in the fast ring, and it downloads everything, and it's all fine. But that, like I said, is a bit of a pain. So Microsoft have got a workaround for it, which he talked about today, which is when you use the Windows Insider tool, you now have an extra option. You've got Insider Slow and Fast, but you've also got Production, Stop Insider Preview Builds. If you do that, it will then see the firmware update. So say you're on the .63 and you've got the older firmware, you can go to the Windows Insider tool, select the Stop Insider Preview option. It will then see the firmware according to the announcement on Insider's Hub. You can install the firmware, and then you can enroll it back into the fast or slow ring again. What they do say on this announcement is that you shouldn't leave your phone you shouldn't stop the production, but you shouldn't go back to production if you're on an insider build that's not a production build, because you'll get stuck then effectively, because you won't get the release version, but you won't get the fast ring or slow ring builds either. So I think what they're saying for now is you're better to stay, once you're in the fast ring, stay on the fast ring. You can stop it, I think, if you get a stale build, obviously, but then you need to put it back on there to see the newer builds. But anyway, it's a way of getting the firmware on your machine without having to wipe the device, which is what I did. So Scott should be happy with that. That'll be better for him. And so if they do release the 550 firmware as a general update for people who aren't on Windows Insiders, then you can then stop the production, the Windows Insider builds, get the firmware, and then put it back in the fast or slow ring. So you're not penalized for having the Insider builds on your phone.
Yeah, I guess at some point that the mobile insiders must switch on to Redstone builds at some point. So you'll stop getting Windows 10 Threshold 2 builds and completely switch on to new beta builds. Yeah,
that's right, and that's where you then are a bit of an interesting dilemma. Then do you, like with, I'm using the the 950 like you, and do we then switch to the slow ring? Do we switch off and stay on the release version, or do we think no, we're better to have the latest version because this is because of the bugs in Windows 10 that there might be? Do we need to make sure we have the latest one? But then is that introducing more issues because we're on the fast ring? I'm actually not sure what I'm going to do at the moment.
Choices.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just leave it on the fast ring and put up with it. But if you remember back to when they were prior to Windows 10 mobile being finished, the issue I had with the 630 was that every so often a build would just fail. Or you couldn't get the build and you had to restore it. And so, I think I wiped my 630 5 or 10 times or something like that, just to get the build. So you don't really want to be doing that on the production phone. So it's interesting. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do on that. I suppose if they announced a finished version of Windows 10 mobile Threshold 2, then you could once you get that, switch out of the Windows Insider builds, but we don't know what that is yet, do we?
No. I tell you what, actually, one thing I didn't mention, sorry, trying the 950 XL, the Windows Hello, which obviously is still in beta on Windows 10 mobile, but I found it to be quite impressive. It's actually quite quick when it works. It's not 100% in terms of, I've tried training it in different lighting conditions and it's definitely improving, but I think I'm still in the habit of using my pin. But as I say, when it works, it's as quick as entering a pin.
Yeah, definitely. I think my only issue with it is, and I don't know what, it doesn't work, and it's not, I can't blame the system for that. I'd like it to work in the car, because that is the one time when you don't want to enter a pin. But it's just the angle of the dock, and you sat relatively far away from it. So, when you do the Windows Hello, I'm showing it on video now, but you have got the phone up quite close to you, and you don't have it that quite close in the car.
Yeah.
Or if you did, you wouldn't be able to see where you're going.
Yeah, that would be a problem, wouldn't it?
Yeah. But I understand exactly why it doesn't work. It'd just be nice if it did, because that is, like I said, that's the one time when you don't want to enter a pin when you're driving.
Yeah. Oh, actually, and that also reminds me of I don't know if it's supposed to be this way, but for me, it seems like a massive glitch compared to Windows Phone 8.1. So when you use Cortana to send a text message under Windows Phone 8.1, you'd get Cortana say message sent. On Windows 10 mobile, I get the unlock pin code pop up. And if I don't unlock the phone and then Cortana says your message has been sent, it doesn't actually send the message.
I can't say I've noticed that.
And it's really frustrating, because when you're driving along, the idea of using Cortana is it's completely hands-free. But then it doesn't send the message. Now, I guess it's to stop people using Cortana to send text messages while your phone's locked. But for me, is that driving along, it's really frustrating, and I've noticed that with my 930 as well. So it's not something unique to the 950 XL.
So this is where you initiated the text message rather than a reply.
Yes, yeah, absolutely, yeah. So normally I've got Here Drive open, so the phone's unlocked. But when I don't use it, it actually opens up. It says that you want to send a message to you say the message, and then it says, do you want to add more, send, or start again? And you say send, and then it pops up the keypad to unlock it, and it doesn't send the message unless you unlock it.
Yeah, I've never, don't really do it that way. So yeah, I know what you mean. Holiday Boy says he's tried Hello on his Excel after a few sherbets on a Friday night, and it didn't like my pupils at all.
Yeah, I tell you what, the one thing I do really like about the 950 XL compared to my 930, and that is the fact that with Hey Cortana, you don't have to wait. So you just say Hey Cortana and literally carry on speaking, whereas with the 930, you have to wait for it to respond.
Right, yeah. I think that the Window Hello is a very nice feature, and I've seen that isn't it Dropbox that are going to using that, but that's not on the PC on the phone version yet, is it?
No,
it's not on that the PC. I'd like to see some of the mobile apps use it as well for logging in. Although most things store your account details anyway, but maybe actually if we could actually start making use of it, so maybe the two-factor authentication could use it, or some. So if you get a two-factor authentication prompt, wouldn't it be great if you could just hold your phone up to your face, and that would then put it. I'm talking, the PC version. So you're on a PC, you use the authenticator app on your phone. So instead of to type the code in, you just pick the phone up, look at it, and it types the code in for you or something. And I know that Microsoft have got a pretty good authenticator app for Android that does that kind of thing. Not with the face, but with you just go to the phone. You don't have to enter the PIN in. So it'd be nice to know. It's be nice to have something like that.
Yeah. I do kind of wonder though, in terms of the difference between using a thumbprint as your authenticator or your eyes. I just imagine trying to use my phone for contactless payment and then trying to get it to recognise me. And just using a thumbprint in that situation just seems so much more natural.
Yeah.
Yeah, try to stare at the yeah. I know what you mean.
Yeah.
So that's the Windows 10 news. So there's a video of the new build if you want to have a look at that with the exciting back buttons, but I do like to do those builds. I've got them right back to the early technical preview now. So if anybody ever wanted to do a thesis on Windows updates from start to finish, then they could study those videos.
Is that going to be your mastermind topic?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, look, of course I do keep account of the build numbers. Obviously, I memorize all those for our quiz. So you got more from
Ian Dixon, his specialist subject.
Yeah.
Windows builds from 2018.
Just make sure that they're watching those videos on a device with a power cable that doesn't catch fire.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Now we mentioned the power cable recall last week, but it's actually, I don't know if we actually talked about the specifics because I don't think Microsoft had really released it yet. It's just the power lead, but it's not the power brick.
Yes.
And it's an optional recall, and you don't have to send your old one back. You just go on the Microsoft site. It knows that you've got a Surface, you've registered it already, and they'll just ship you a new power cord out. So it's just the small power, 3-pin plug that goes to the power brick that they'll send you a new one out. And it might seem it's perfectly fine, but anyway, I bought it before July, so I've applied for the new one.
I'm still curious about the fact that they're doing like a voluntary recall, because it seems to me that the way it's damaged is something that you shouldn't do to any power cord. It almost feels like it's misuse to me rather than it being an issue, a design issue.
Well, it's something that's such a delicate issue, isn't it? That they can't mess around with power. But it can't be that bad, otherwise they'd be sending you an email as a Surface customer, wouldn't you, say stop using your power cable, we're going to send you a new one.
Yeah, but I just want to, advertising it like this, it's almost like anyone seeing it would think, well, I'm going to get mine replaced anyway.
Well, yeah, of course, which is what I did, isn't it?
Yes.
First thing you do is say, I want mine replaced anyway. So yeah, it can't be that bad, but it must be serious enough for them not to run into any issues.
I've never understood voluntary recalls. It doesn't make any sense to me.
No.
But that actually brings us on to the subject which might be covering in a week or so's time, possibly even next week. We're going to have an expert on product recalls on the show, so maybe he'll be able to answer that. Why would you have a voluntary recall and not a full recall?
Yeah, there's a subtle difference, isn't there? I think.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like with your car. If they tell you to come in because there's a problem with your brakes, you go in, don't you? They don't say if you want to come in and have your brakes fixed, pop in. If you're not bothered too much about the brake features, then just carry on. It's fine. You do worry.
Yeah. Like I said, I just think, I mean, I could take the wire to my TV and start bending it and pinching it, and eventually that would become dangerous and broken and frayed, and why isn't everybody recording, offering a recall on cables? But yeah, it'll be interesting to speak to someone with insider knowledge.
And talking of cables as well, I posted a little review of some Clotech USB-C cables. You might want to look at some of these. Jason, why you got your 950? It comes with the 950 XL came with a USB-C to USB cable, but they're quite expensive if you want to buy them as additional cables. So I got a review of a couple of them, and while the cables themselves were pretty well made and everything, and they do the job, I did notice there is a difference between USB-C cables that you're probably not aware of at first, because it's a mixing of standards, isn't it? You've got what you class as the cable type, which is USB-C, but that's the connector, and then you've got the actual protocol it supports, which is USB 2 or USB 3. So the one that comes in the box with the phone and the dock as well is a USB-C cable that supports USB 3. The ones that I got from Clotech, which were about £9, something like that, they're USB-C, but USB 2. So they do the job. They charge the phone up. You can transfer data to them. But I just noticed that the Microsoft supplied cable was 2 or 3 times faster than when transferring data from the phone to the Surface Pro 3, which supports USB 3. So it's just something to be aware of. If you think, I'll get a spare USB-C cable for the office or something like that, that they're not all the same, and cables actually do make a difference. Depending on what your scenario is, a £9 one might be fine for just having as an emergency to charge your phone up. But if you're doing a lot of maybe video recording on the phone and you want to fast transfer at speed, then you're better with a USB 3 cable if your device supports it.
Yeah, and unlike some adverts I've seen, USB 3 does not charge any faster.
Yes, it doesn't make any difference, does it?
There was actually an advert. I don't know if it was an Amazon one or an eBay one, but there was actually what I saw, which says this supports USB 3 standard, which will make your phone charge faster. No, it won't.
No. I actually did try those cables, and there was no difference in charging speed. It was just the transfer speed.
Yeah,
quite a bit of a difference though once you got going.
So I was just going to say, Ian, so I know we're running out of time, but so I had been complaining for months about the Surface Pro 3 driver issue, and you hadn't experienced it once. How are you finding the new firmware update that was released this week?
Actually, since my issues on Saturday, I've not had one issue.
Oh, right, okay, because I know you were talking about the crashes left, right, and centre.
Yeah, well, I put the drivers on whatever Friday it was, wasn't it, when they came out? I think Thursday, Friday.
Yes, yeah, Thursday, Friday. Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, not this week.
So I put the installs on, and actually I had an issue getting them on at first as well. That it would get so far, and then I can't remember what it was now. But anyway, I think I did a restart, and it put the drivers on. And then on Saturday, when I came to use it, it was maybe 10, 20 seconds. It would just freeze. Then they come up with the display driver issue, a crash thing, which is, at least they've now taken the Windows 8 bit off. It just says Windows.
Yes.
But it was crashing all the time and freezing and crashing, freezing and crashing. But I did a restart, and since then it hasn't done it. So I'm back to how it used to be, really, before I had like I said, I never really had the problems. So
did you power off completely at any point? Because that seems to be one of the tricks I've been hearing about, where I guess it resets the Wi-Fi adapter in some way and the driver then works better.
No, because I never power off. I only ever just close the keyboard.
Right. So not that then.
Yeah.
No, I mean the one thing I did, mine was docked when it updated, when it did the Surface firmware updates, but I don't think that should necessarily make any major difference.
Yeah. And actually, it's amazing, isn't it, how a picture can travel? I tweeted
Yeah.
that picture. You know, I was only just sat there, and I thought, oh, this is annoying. So I tweeted a picture, and I keep getting retweets of it still. Yeah, even this afternoon, which makes me feel like I complain too much, but I haven't complained since Saturday. It's been fine since then. So
Yeah.
But obviously, it shows how many people it does affect, because I do see a lot of people retweeting that, saying, "Yeah, it's annoying me," as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've not had any issues. Not since I didn't have any issues installing it. Haven't had any issues since, and that's, you know, I haven't seen the driver crash since. Certainly no blue screens. So yeah, it's been really good for me.
Yeah, and you were experiencing a lot.
Yes, yeah, a lot. Almost, I mean, definitely daily, if not 2 or 3 times a day, which was really frustrating. But yeah, I thought it was ironic that you kept saying you hadn't experienced it once.
Yeah, yeah,
Boom.
yeah, exactly, yeah.
I felt that was payback.
Yes, you did, but fortunately, it's gone away now, so I'm okay.
Good.
The other updates, including the firmware, where they think they embedded they updated the embedded controller that says improve startup reliability, improve fingerprints driver accuracy. What the wireless network and Bluetooth controller has been improved.
Driver, what's that? Sorry.
Yeah, that's something you can't have in the UK.
Yeah, so disappointed.
They included updated the audio driver and the battery driver. And like I said, I hadn't really had any issues previously, so I don't know about those. I know we talked about it last week, the issue where the keyboard doesn't work. I've not had that since the update, but then I very rarely got that error anyway. But 13,000 people on my YouTube videos have had that.
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate that they still really haven't resolved the issues with the Surface Book or the Surface Pro 4. I think it's almost getting to that point now where, I mean, I was kind of tempted by the Surface Pro 4 for the RAM upgrade and the liquid cooling, but I'm almost getting to the point now where I think I'll just skip this generation.
Yeah, especially the Surface Book, and that really has for a device that really Microsoft excelled themselves with the launch and everything else, and then they kind of let themselves down with the implementation, which is something we've probably talked about on the show before with Microsoft.
Yeah, especially now in the US, they're now shipping the 1 terabyte version, which is, you know, that's like $2,700, isn't it? That's a massive investment for it not to sleep properly.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when you pay that kind of money, you just want it to work, don't you?
You do, yeah.
And I'm not sure. I think I've heard less issues with the Surface Pro 4, but I know there are still issues. But yeah, if the Surface Book, you know, things like the eject button not working correctly and things, you know, it's not third-party drivers that they can, you know, the third party can blame Windows, and Windows team can say no, it's the third party. This is one team, isn't it? Supposedly.
Yep.
It's
indeed. So I mean, and having talked to some of the hardware guys, I mean, the hardware is brilliant. So a lot of it is firmware and software glitches, and it does seem that Microsoft. Well, we've talked about the way they've changed the way they do quality control, and it seems to be taking a while to settle into the software development teams, I think. Last few patches I've seen for things have been a lot more solid. A lot of these app updates have been a lot more solid coming out. But I certainly think they've taken a while to adapt to this new methodology they put in place. And I think that affected things like the firmware for the Surface Pro as well.
I think in some ways, though, I think it's a shame, and it's almost, in a way, kind of unforgivable, because if you actually look at the track record of the Surface Pro devices, there hasn't been a device that has launched that hasn't had some kind of driver-related issues. The first couple of generations, it was, you know, issues with the Wi-Fi that took them a long time to fix. And I think, remember rightly, I think the Surface Pro 3 had Wi-Fi issues when that first launched. So
it's really weird to be talking about Microsoft and saying they're better at hardware than they are at software.
Yeah. And I know, you know, they are only minor glitches. I mean, my Surface Pro 3 has been, you know, apart from driver issues, which were more of an annoyance than anything really kind of prevented me from using the device, and I didn't have that many issues with the Wi-Fi when I first got it. But you just think these are really premium, top-notch devices, and they need to be getting this stuff right first time.
Yeah, I mean that's it. I mean my Surface Pro 3 is an excellent device, and I can't fault it. I didn't have the display issues, and it's been working fine, and the wireless works fine. I remember my Surface 2 though used to have a problem where it wouldn't connect until you disabled and enabled the wireless. I remember that a few times, but not getting that with this Surface Pro 3. So that's the quality bar that they need to be at. And when you say when you're talking about $2,000 machines, then that bar needs to be very high. I hope they get there without tarnishing the brand again, because they have got the Surface so much goodwill with the Surface brand now they need to maintain that.
Yes, yeah.
Especially if we're going to have a Surface phone and so on.
Yeah, and I mean, whether or not it'll be this year, I don't know. But at some point, they'll be announcing the Surface Pro 5, maybe the Surface 4. Things they'll be moving along.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll see if this new firmware. Was there a new firmware for the Surface Book? I think there was, wasn't there?
Yes, yeah, it's supposed to be.
Yeah, we'll see. I have not heard any reports back yet, but we'll see. I mean, it's not even out in the UK yet, is it? So it's still on pre-order. Right, well, we are running out of time. One thing I did want to mention is I've got a video up on YouTube on how to share content between Windows devices using Home Group. So if you've got some video or music or documents on Windows 7, 8 or 10 machine, and you want to access one of the devices, Home Group's really easy to use and nice and simple. And we had a nice section in our book about it, so I recorded a video for it as well. Oh, and I must say, we're going to do a giveaway. I'll have to think about it this week, but next week probably we'll give away a signed copy of our Windows 10 book.
Hey, not many of them about.
Yeah,
very limited editions.
Yeah, very limited. So I'll we'll sort that out, and we'll talk about that next week. So we better get wrapped up then. So Jason, where can we find your Lumia 950 experiences from tweeting?
Yeah, you can find me at Database Jace.
And will you be tweeting from a 950 or an iPhone?
Yeah, from a 950 maybe.
Yeah. And Gary, what have you got on Fascinating Tech?
So obviously it's the Christmas issue still the current one, but we're busy working on our March issue. Got a few bits and pieces. I'm busy automating curtains, ready for an article on that. How to do that on the cheap. Automate your curtains for less than 40 quid.
Oh yeah, and did you buy that F1 car that Jason sent us a link to?
No, I didn't think the guy quite fit it in the garage.
So it's definitely not something for the commute to Tesco's.
No,
Yeah.
definitely not.
Where would you mount your 950 XL in that?
Well, talking about that, just breaking news, there's a new mount just been released with charging for the 950 XL.
Yeah, that's the other thing. I know, Jason, you had issues. Didn't you say your Nokia charger doesn't?
It's yeah, all my wireless chargers work except for the one in the car, and it's purely because the where the coils are in the Nokia car mount just don't tie up.
Yeah, they don't. There are ways of making it work with silver foil and paper clips, but there is actually an article. If you search on Google, you can find that. But there is actually a ProClip have just released a properly powered one charging in-car charger unit for the 950 XL.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned one, didn't you, Ian?
Yeah, the one I used for the 1520 works perfectly with this one. Yep. You can't have it slotted fully all the way down because it catches on the buttons on the side, but you can have it enough. It's just high enough so it doesn't touch the buttons on the side. If you push it too far down, it catches the volume down and fades your music out.
Yeah, actually, that's one thing I would say. Actually, that's something I'm really struggling to get used to, which is the button layouts with the power button in between the volume up, volume down.
I'd rather they were slightly further up, and the other way around. But I understand why they're further down, because for the one-handed mode, you do need the. I mean, if you hold it in your hand, your right hand, I'm left-handed, but if you hold it in your right hand, the power is actually where your thumb is. Well, it is on mine, thumb anyway. So it actually is perfectly designed location. If it was higher up, you wouldn't be able to reach it with one hand.
Yeah.
Which is why it's there. But I still find it a little bit odd. I'd prefer the way that the 950 was. The 1520 was. But having used it with one hand, your right hand, the thumb is on the power button. So it explains why that's there, but being left-handed, I'd never really noticed that. It's handist.
Handist. Oh dear, can't have that.
Yes, that's right. Right, we better get going then. So thanks to everybody that joined us in the chat room. I said we'll be back next week. I think Gary's going to have a guest for us. I'm glad the technical issues held up now. Seem to be okay. And we'll have a giveaway with the book as well. So anybody in the chat room next week has got a very good chance of winning a signed copy of the book. If you don't want the signed, that's fine. Just tell us, but we won't be offended. Too much. Yeah.
Too much.
We would never speak to you again, and you'd be banned from the chat room. But apart from that, anyway. So with that, I'll leave you with it, and we'll see you next week.
Take care.
Yeah. Bye bye.